A terrible story. The hunt for girls in the suburbs, February 1988, became an infamous time in the city of Podolsk, located in the Moscow region. In this very city, vigilant police officers noticed a girl wandering aimlessly along the railway tracks. Her shaky steps and stumbling caused them alarm, giving the impression that she was on the verge of losing consciousness. Approaching her, the police saw that she was wearing strange and neglected clothes, with a haggard face, and presented a sad sight. The patrol hurriedly approached her. The girl, noticing them, tried to escape, but soon fell into the snow, unable to continue the fight. Her state of health caused serious concerns, so the police rushed her to the nearest hospital. During the interrogation, the doctors diagnosed severe poisoning with psychotropic substances. It was only a day later that the girl managed to come to her senses and give her name: Natalia Samsonova. She told me that she was abused, robbed, and even tried to take her life by an unknown filmmaker. She said that she could not remember the last name of her abuser, but described in detail the meeting that took place in the center of Moscow, near Gum. It was an ordinary Moscow fuss when a man in his 40s approached Natalia, confidently introducing himself as a director and offering her a role in the film. Natalia, who has little experience and is influenced by seductive beliefs, agreed, although she initially wanted to refuse. He showed her his ID, which greatly lulled her suspicions. On the way to the director's apartment to discuss the details of the casting, they stopped for a coffee. However, then everything became terrible. Events seemed to cover her in a fog. After the blood test, the doctors were shocked. The maximum dose of various psychotropic substances was found in her body, which made it clear that the criminal was focused not only on the girl, but also on his criminal methods. The presence of such drugs in this man indicated that he was clearly not new to pharmaceuticals and had access to legal medical products. The search for investigators working on this case left no stone unturned. First of all, they began to work out all possible connections between those previously convicted of similar crimes and people with medical education, which could help to investigate the case. The second case, Domodedovo. Soon the situation repeated itself, but in another city near Moscow, Domodedovo. A girl was found barely alive at the railway station, and when the doctors managed to give her first aid, she was able to regain her strength and tell what had happened to her. Her name was Tatiana Poskrebisheva, and she, like Natalia, came to Moscow with big dreams of becoming an actress. The naive girl, once in this metropolis, immediately attracted the eyes of a local director, who invited her to a screen test. Being a complete unnatural coincidence, Tatiana also agreed, unaware that something terrible was waiting for her. There was a movie camera and videotapes in the apartment where she got to, which gave detectives the opportunity to assume that the criminal could film his actions for personal use or for sale. As in the case of Natalia, Tatiana became the victim of a soulless manipulator who took away all her valuables and dressed her in some kind of rags. But unlike her predecessor, Tatiana was able to memorize the signs of the criminal and even draw his portrait. This was an extremely important aspect, as her drawing turned out to be very accurate. The name of the director, indicated on the certificate, was etched into my memory. It was Eduard Chaplygin. The investigators, seized by an incredible determination to catch the criminal, began searching for information about the director at Mosfilm. However, there was no information about Chaplygin in the studio's archives. When law enforcement agencies were still patrolling known meeting places, the attacks on the girls continued. The victims, bit by bit, complemented the portrait of the criminal, which was increasingly overgrown with details. Some of them claimed that there were also women and teenage girls in the attacker's apartment, which surprised and several times. Although the investigators had doubts about this, they managed to collect a typical psychological profile of the perpetrator, given his conversational style, habits, erudition, and charm, which allowed him to gain the trust of victims. Basically, he chose his prey among provincial women who, due to ignorance, could not name the street or the house where his screen tests took place. At the same time, the investigators compiled a list of places where the criminal most often approached the girls, which included Gum and Detsky Mir on Lubyanka. Operational staff were on duty inside and outside these stores on a regular basis, but this did not bring noticeable results. Months of inactivity and a new victim. Months followed each other, and the possibility of detaining the criminal never presented itself. It was already 1990. Another victim, Larisa Prokhorova, was found at Tsaritsino station. Like her predecessors, she miraculously escaped, and unlike the others, was able to remember the landmark that she saw from the window of the ill, faded apartment. It was a monument with the face of a man of the mongoloid type on a large round pedestal. Detectives quickly identified it as a monument to Vietnamese politician Ho Chi Minh, which was recently unveiled near the Akademicheskaya metro station. As soon as the landmark was identified, the operatives immediately set up surveillance of all the nearby courtyards and streets, which could lead to the arrest of the criminal. A couple of days later, a man matching the description of the suspect's sketch came to the attention of the operatives. Detectives detained the criminal during another approach to the girl with an offer to take a screen test. During his detention, a fake director's ID in the name of Eduard Chaplagin was found in his possession. Biography of the criminal Valery Asratian, a 32-year-old native of Yerevan, showed a strong attraction to girls from an early age, especially very young ones. Having already been convicted twice of crimes related to harassment and abuse, he has gained experience in his life, used for manipulation. He had an education and experience in psychology, which explained his professional approach to victims. In Moscow, Asratian lived in a civil marriage with a certain Marina Agayeva, who had a 14-year-old daughter, Tatiana, who suffers from known mental disorders. As it turned out, both of them were involved in criminal activities and were used as accomplices. Asratian used powerful psychotropic drugs that had previously been prescribed to Tatiana for treatment, which made the whole scheme even more intimidating. He recorded all his adventures on tape, getting real pleasure from watching. During the interrogation, when Asratian was detained, throughout the trip to the police station, he offered to tell about all the crimes he had committed, which silenced all resistance. He mentioned the very fact of the deaths of two girls, who, as it turned out later, were not included in the range of ongoing investigations, and any investigator was shocked by such a celestial scale of crimes. During the interrogation, Asratian confessed that, fearing to be caught, he began to take the lives of his victims. He used different handwriting, hoping to disguise the crimes under the actions of other, lesser criminals. Nevertheless, his fear of possible torture in an isolation cell with other prisoners forced him to cooperate with the investigation, which allowed him to beg for solitary confinement. Asratian's trial was a real event. During the trial, he was convicted of numerous crimes, including rape and murder, and given the death penalty. The punishment was carried out in accordance with the law. At the same time, his accomplice, Marina Agayeva, who played an extremely negative role in the criminal's actions towards women, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. This terrible story, full of tragedies and suffering, has become not only a mathematical fall of darkness, but also an indicator of how dangerous carelessness and, especially, gullibility to strangers in dangerous situations can be. Scary factors raise the question of the safety of young women in our society, and how important it is to be vigilant and careful. Fortunately, one day, justice was restored, and such crimes came to an end. This is where the story ends, but its echoes will forever remain in the memory, emphasizing that evil must be identified and punished so that everyone can feel safe. Thanks for reading. If you liked the material, please like it, share your opinions in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day.